So the power went out at my house, and which means the internet, like an hour before this call. And so so I went through the hurricane, right, where we didn't have power for like weeks, and I know I'm like a little more panicky, which is part of ADHD. We can have more trouble regulating. So just so you know, I'm a little bit, but hey, maybe that'll give me a little bit more dopamine today. Not that I need it for this call. But anyways, I'm doing audio a little bit differently so that I can. And that's another thing with ADHD, right? Is like we can hear sounds throughout the office and everything like that. And so I have noise canceling headphones, which are both ones,
Tyler,
which are really good.
Tyler, we're going to give you all the grace in the world, as much grace as you give us on this call. You have all the patience that you need from us, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. Yeah. So I know you guys get it, right? And then just needing noise canceling headphones. So I've kind of hooked my phone audio, and yeah, I'm just so grateful before I get started to have a safe space for me too. You know, it's been over a year now. It's been super healing for me, and I love, you know, I've been in real estate for 15 years, and there in the past there's pressure to like appear a certain way or carry yourself a certain way or, you know, be more formal. And it's been so refreshing and healing to come into a space like this with all of you where I know I can just be myself. Like I don't have to be on a pedestal or like present like I'm some perfect time blocking ninja or I don't know. You know what I mean? We're all just human, and yeah. So there's nowhere else I'd rather be. And we're going to talk about time blocking today, which is like huge. You know, I mean, it's big, and it's really important. And so I'm really excited for the call today. And so what you'll notice, and I'll go back to my notes here, is that there's going to be like people are in different places for time blocking. You might be at a different place where rigidity and a lot of structure is really helpful, or that might be really dysregulating. So I guess what I'd like to start out with is I know that we have a lot of training and ideas around what time blocking is and what it's supposed to look like. And for today, if there's something that you've learned in the past that doesn't really resonate for you, understand that a lot of the training out there around time blocking and just real estate in general is for a neurotypical brain, not a neurodivergent ADHD brain, because our brains work differently. We respond differently to structure and to freedom, to creativity, the way our ideas, whether we can sit still or not. And so who's been in a time blocking class before or training? Who's read about that or studied it? It's one of the most asked questions from real estate agents, especially like me being a coach, which I've done for 7 years now. And that's one of the things, 10,000 one-on-one calls so far with clients, and time blocking is a big thing. So it's one of the most asked questions. I think it's one of the things that most people feel like they're not doing right. Rarely do I find someone that says like, oh, I'm good with time blocking, I got it. Is there anyone here who's like, yeah, I got it. Like I've mastered time blocking. And you'd probably be time blocking. You wouldn't be on the call. No, I'm just kidding. Like, no, is there anybody here who's like, hey, you know, I've got some of it down and I could make it better? Anybody here who's time blocking a little bit? Okay. Do you see, okay, a little bit. Do you see how few hands go up about that? So I want you to know how normal it is to feel like you're not time blocking, right? Or that you're not even doing it. Like that's normal. That's why we're here. And if you are doing some of it, that's really neat too, because we want to hear from you. So yeah, there can be anxiety around the word time blocking. And so what I want you to think about more is really this is like how to be intentional. So time blocking is a tool. It's one tool. It's not mandatory to time block, which when I say time blocking, what I picture and a lot of people picture is where, you know, every 30 minutes specifically, there's something you should be doing. And if you're not doing, you're failing, you know, and it's very rigid and it's all throughout the day. So it can give people a lot of anxiety. And so think of this call more about how can you be intentional, because that's what time blocking is. It's how to be intentional with your time. One of the things and why this matters, and by the way, the agenda, we'll do about 30 minutes of content and then give or take, and then we'll go into some discussion and Q&A that's open. One of the reasons time blocking matters, especially, or just like intentionality around our time, is with ADHD, we can have more challenges with transition. And so changing from one task to another can take us longer, or we might not want to do it, or there might be resistance, or it might be very dysregulating. And so also if we're working and then with ADHD, we're drawn to urgency because it creates dopamine. So we're working and we haven't protected our time, and then the phone rings, and this is urgent. Even if it's not that important, it's urgent, and boom, dopamine, we're on it before we already know it. So we can especially be vulnerable to jumping from thing to thing to thing. We can get dysregulated. If you're going from your phone to email, to a phone call, to marketing, to picking up signs, to your phone again, to your email, you're going to get a lot less done in a day. Like you just will. So the other way that you can look at time blocking, and if that word is kind of like gives you anxiety, think of it as intentionality and then boundaries. Time blocking is essentially intentionality and boundaries. That's what it is. It's boundaries with yourself, boundaries with your goals, boundaries with your family. Like, if you're constantly jumping from thing to thing and then you get home an hour later, you might be violating a boundary with your family because that's a boundary that you want to keep to spend more time with them, but you can't because you've lost so much time in transition. And so what I mean by that is when you're going from, like, let's say admin work or email, and then you go to your phone, that's a transition. And our transitions take longer. We do. That's why, does anybody not like change, or maybe a struggle to change, or, okay, we see like people literally laughing, right? Okay, maybe, so, and then there's also change we like variation. However, some big changes, for example, when I was a kid, and I'm on the autism spectrum too, so change is even more so difficult. When the school year would start, I would just be irritable. I would be depressed. I would be dysregulated for like a couple of weeks. And then when school would end, it'd be summer. Like you can hang out with friends. Same thing, because it was a big change. And so, transitions can be helpful. And just an example of what's really helpful with that is, is that I think somebody, is this a screen share maybe? Okay, there we go. Okay, we got that off. So what's helpful with transitions, I know for a lot of people, is especially if you're going on vacation or you're coming back, instead of expecting yourself to jump into your time blocking schedule on that Monday, you want to transition, you want to ease in. Or even just taking like 2 days off every weekend, you might end a little early on Friday and have a transition plan. And then on Monday, something I've personally done, and this is based off another client, is I don't start until 10 or noon. So I sleep in on Mondays. Instead of this abrupt early 8 a.m. get going, like suck it up, it's like I'm going to gently slide into the week and I'm going to be regulated. So that's the other thing when we look at, and I'm going to talk about ideal time blocking, what that looks like. But really the point with us with ADHD is when we're not regulated, everything feels harder. So if you're dysregulated, which could be irritable, kind of panicky, can't sit still, you have anxiety, you might be angry, or you might feel almost like manic, things are going to be harder. They just are. And if you can take that time to figure out a schedule that works for you, where you don't get dysregulated, where you're not forcing yourself, or you get in the groove, like you might not experience this. You might just go boom, 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 and you got this internal motor that doesn't quiet, right? There's going to be different camps in this. But the point is that when you're regulated, you're going to do better. And so when we go into this ideal schedule, it's going to look different for everybody. And if you've been in a lot of trainings, all these trainings are saying it's got to be this way. It doesn't. There are some basic practices that can be really helpful for us, and it's okay for it to look different. So I'm going to do a screen share right now of 2 examples, what this could look like, and how, and so again, it doesn't have to look a certain way, and I want to give you an example of these 2. And this is a mistake that I see a lot of people with ADHD make, is we go to these trainings or we hear about time blocking, and it's like, okay, I've got to do all this stuff. I have to wake up and journal. I've got to read for 30 minutes. I've got to eat breakfast. I got to do all these things to be successful. I've got to exercise. I've got to do affirmations, motivational, all this stuff. And then you get to the office and it's like, we've got lower dopamine levels. And if we're doing stuff that we're not interested in, that's not passionate, it's the same thing every day, it's not exciting to us, our dopamine can get really depleted, and we can almost get apathetic, or just our executive function, like it's hard to take care of ourselves. It's almost like we have a fuel tank within us, and there's only so much fuel we can use, and there's stuff that refills the fuel. But if you're using that fuel to do all the things that take discipline, it's stuff you don't really like, you think you're supposed to do, and it depletes. We also need that fuel to regulate our emotions, to feed ourselves, to bathe, to clean the house, all these things. And so I really want you to all of us to watch that, myself too. I want us to all watch that, make sure you're doing a schedule that works for you. So for some people, this is really helpful, to wake up and to journal, and they feel amazing, right? And they read for 30 minutes, and they make the bed and they exercise in the 5 a.m. club. For other people, they're going to be so tired, they're going to use so much of their fuel by the time 9 a.m. comes, they can't even lead gen. Like, they're exhausted. But you feel like, and that's what I see with our clients, you feel like you're being productive because you're doing everything you're supposed to do. So it's like, I'm going to be successful because I did all this stuff. And the one thing that's actually going to build you business gets neglected because there's no fuel left by the time you get to that point, right? So that's agent A, and maybe they can do it, or maybe they get to this point and they can't, right? There's no fuel left. Or agent A with ADHD really loves this stuff and it fuels them. So when you start your schedule, it's important, if there's something in there before your lead generation, which is the most important thing in your entire schedule, if you're going to only time block one thing, time block in lead generation, is make sure the stuff you do before it gives you fuel, it doesn't take it away. Don't do things you need discipline for before unless it gets you in a place to do it or it gives you fuel. So once this is done, then you can do all the other stuff. Put this as a priority, because you can see, look at this, agent B, a lot of us can have delayed circadian rhythms. I think it's like 75% of us. So we get tired 2 hours later than a non-ADHD person because of our brain chemistry and our cortisol and our melatonin. And so we wake up later. And if the ADHD person who has a delayed circadian rhythm forces themselves to wake up at 5 a.m. and they get in the habit, it's still not good, right? You can override this stuff. None of this is set in stone. But if you do that because you think you're supposed to, look at agent B. Agent B says, no, I'm going to sleep in. And they sleep in till like 8. And they get breakfast, and they get something quick, like a smoothie or a bar or something, 15-minute walk, shower, drive to the office, and boom, they're doing lead gen, and they haven't used their fuel, and they use it all in lead gen. So look, this person might do double what agent A does. The agent A is doing all the right things, but they're doing double the lead gen. Who's going to end up with more sales? The person that slept until 8, right? Like, so do it. However, again, if agent A, if this revs them up and is really exciting, go for it. Then do that. Do what you need and trust your brain, because a lot of the training that I've seen for a non-ADHD agent, they need more rigidity. I've coached people who don't have ADHD. They need the rules. They need rigidity. They want not all, but a lot want the exact scripts. They want to know exactly who to call. They need that. Whereas us, we have more of an ability to improvise, is the word I was looking for. And then also our conversion rates are double that of a non-ADHD agent from what I tracked for over 7 years. So chances are it takes about 120 conversations for a non-ADHD agent to get a closing. Chances are it takes you about 60. So you're going to talk to half the amount of people for the same amount of sales. So if you do get panicky or not doing the right things, know there's a high percentage that you can do half of the output and get the same outcome. And that's what I saw over and over again. So think about that when you're doing your schedule. Now there are other people, again, who it just depends on what camp you're in, who really like a lot of stuff in the morning, and there's all kinds of different ADHDers, right? So you might do double the amount of lead gen and do this. It just depends. Now another thing that can be really helpful with this is you'll see that this is basically blocked until noon, and then there's open times in the afternoon. So that's really important because first off, Gary Keller, because that's my training, right? I know we have other brokerages on here, but Gary Keller, that's what he recommends: time block until noon and then leave the afternoon open. And because the thing, especially with us, is we do well with structure, but if it's too rigid, we can rebel. If it's too rigid, and we can think in all or nothing thinking. So if you haven't been time blocked and you say, I got a time block, I'm going to go, and you come up with this really, if anybody's done this, you come up with this very rigid schedule that's like this ninja schedule, and then the day comes, I'm going to start at Monday, and you start to get overwhelmed, and then it's like almost like you shut down and you don't even touch it. you've ever experienced something like that, or a workout plan or a diet plan or a lead gen plan or whatever, we have this great idea, but it's too overwhelming, and we can go to all or nothing. We go to like black and white. Like I either do it all the way or don't do it at all. You know, I either like crush it or I'm not good at time blocking. You know, something like that. So watch out for that all or nothing, because the truth is really in the middle. When you start doing time blocking, you start being intentional with your time. And the way to start this would be just grab a spreadsheet or a planner and just think about what's your ideal time, you know, your ideal schedule up until noon. And I like every 30 minutes. You can, you know, there's kind of a shift, so it keeps things new. If you're doing lead generation, what I'd recommend, not what's on here, but I would specify what you're actually doing every 30 minutes. So, for example, if I had this huge block of lead generation on here, that can feel kind of daunting. But if I put call sphere, like my VIP sphere from 10 to 10:30, and then the next one I said follow up on Facebook leads and send, you know, at least 20 Facebook messages. And then the next 30 minutes, call the open house leads from Sunday. And the next 30 minutes, do my DTD2, which is another way to kind of touch your database. That I'm going to have a much higher chance of achieving my lead gen than if I have some big daunting 2-hour block on there. So if you've had lead generation on your schedule and you haven't broken it up into exactly what you're doing, it's so like there's not, it makes sense that you might have got lost and not done it. So I would highly recommend those 30 minutes of specify. If you can do it the night before, it's even better, because then you're not in this decision paralysis. So again, let's say you're not going to do time blocking, you're not going to do the whole thing. If you take anything from this call, put your lead generation in there and specify the 30 minutes, and if you don't time block anything else, that's still a win, right? The other thing with time blocking, and I'm kind of giving you like best tips. I'm just going on a roll here with what I see. So, you know, and we'll go to questions. These are like the biggest things I've seen in 10,000 calls with agents. So the other thing that I see, especially with the all or nothing with ADHD, is that we think we got our time blocking schedule and then we try it that day or that week and we can't do it and it's not for us. I can't time block. Versus, hey, this is a practice. I am practicing time blocking, and it might be that in high success if I can't do this. Maybe my goal on Monday is not to, now I've got my ideal schedule, maybe my goal is not to do the whole thing in one day. Maybe it's just to wake up at 5 a.m. or wake up at 7 a.m. That's the goal. And now I've done that for a couple times. Now I'm going to move to, I'm going to read 30 minutes. Or like I said, maybe you're not doing all that stuff before. Maybe it's just the lead gen. So it's kind of like habit stacking. So we're going to move into like adding one thing, getting a habit, cementing that, and then adding another thing versus this overhaul where you got to change your life on Monday. And if you don't do it, you second time blocking, you shouldn't touch it. Like I say that all the time. Got my deal. I see people smile. I got my deal schedule. This is it. I'm going to do it. That's like, I'm starting to diet on Monday. You know, I got this. And then it's like, oh, this is too overwhelming. I didn't do it. I failed. Time blocking is not for me. It's just very all or nothing. So remember, think of this as a sustainable practice that you're going to keep for your whole career. And the other thing with this is when you're doing a time blocking schedule and you think you have an ideal schedule, it's going to change. It's going to change. Think of like if you've ever made a budget before, or if not, just imagine you make a budget for your money. This is my analogy. That's going to make sense here in a second. And you have, let's say you have $1,000 and you need to budget $1,000 for all expenses, which is totally unrealistic. You need like $5,000 in this economy. But anyway, let's say we have $1,000, right? And you put $100 towards, groceries for the week and $100 for the electric bill, and you specify everything. And you're like, okay, this is all planned out for all the necessities. And then the next day, you're like, I need new shoes. Shoot, where do I put that? Right? Or, oh, I forgot about cleaning supplies. That's weird. Or, oh, I forgot I got to get the car fixed. So it doesn't mean you failed at your budget, right? It doesn't mean you should never do a budget again. It means you need to just rework your budget. So same thing with your time blocking. When you get your ideal schedule and something random comes up, or it's not sustainable, or you don't have enough time for admin work or calling people back, it doesn't mean you failed. Again, I want you to think of this as a practice that's malleable, that we can move and shift as you go. And what you're looking for is, what is the sustainable, ideal, intentionality and boundaries with your time every day that's going to work for your career. So that's the big thing. I really want to pull everybody as much as we can, and I'm saying to myself too, because I get stuck in it sometimes, is out of this like all or nothing. I've got to either do it perfect or not. I got it right or not. So that's one thing I want to say with that. And then also, especially with your lead generation, we talked about transitions. So this is why, let's say, if you're laying on the couch and you got to get up and clean, that transition from laying on the couch to getting up and cleaning is like the mountain. But once you're cleaning and you got music on, it's good. Sometimes I can go for 4 hours. I'm like, oh my gosh, my body's falling apart. I'm so tired. But it's that transition in between. Once we get started, we're good. So if you have something, especially lead generation, one thing I'd recommend, and that works well, is we need to transition between that. And one that I love is role play or some kind of accountability thing. Maybe somebody meets you at the office, or you have role play. And this is something I did. We sold over 300 houses in 1 year. This was back in 2015. I had a role play partner every day, and this other clients do this too. It's only 15 minutes. Don't go more than 15. That's my recommendation because it gets kind of stale in my opinion. So you have 15 minutes, and you do it. Let's say I'm going to start lead generation at 9. Well, I'm going to do role play from 8:45 to 9, and we might text about a scenario. And right when we get on the phone, it's 6 minutes of me being the agent, them being the client, and then a few minutes of feedback, and then we're going to swap and do the same thing. Then they're going to be the agent, and I'm going to be the client, and then it's like a minute or two of feedback, and it's great. Talk to you next time. That's it. So it's only 15 minutes, and it's real world stuff. So you can totally practice scripts if you want. You can also practice conversations. So it could be that you had, let's say I had something where I got stumped on an objection the day before. Well, I'm going to tell my role play partner what objection I got, and I'm going to be the client. I'm going to see how they handle it. So it doesn't have to be that you're going to find some script or find some perfect thing or be rigid. Be flexible, be creative with this stuff. What I've seen as a coach with this too, there's a lot of things where we have to do it the way we should do it this way, where we've almost dampened our creativity because it's not been rewarded in the school system, in some area, in some arenas or the success world, just because a lot of it's built for a non-ADHD brain, and theirs doesn't work the same way, where we can get more creative and do some amazing things. So feel free to do it your own way as long as you're progressing or you're breaking through any challenges you have, if that makes sense. So that transition of role play, or if you're going to meet someone in the office, something, it gets you talking, it gets you moving. There's somebody else there versus relying on discipline to start. I wouldn't go from laying down to lead gen. I had to do role play. I wouldn't do it. I got great discipline, I think. Wouldn't work. So I had to do role play every single day, and I had different people all over the country. So if you find there's a lot of resistance, think of the tools versus I can't do this or this is too hard. Just think of a tool to help and figure out what's really hard about it. So there's your lead gen with that, and just boundaries around that. We can have trouble. We could be people pleasers. So you could change your voicemail, saying that in this is not necessarily the ideal schedule. You might have more stuff in here, but you might have a couple blocks to call people back. That's really important. If you really want to maximize your productivity for the day, having your lead gen in there, having your transitions into lead generation, and then on your voicemail, you could have, hey, thank you so much for calling. I'm in a meeting from 9 to 10, as well as 11 to 12:30. I'll be returning all calls at 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 5 p.m., something like that, right? So if the lead calls, you're not dropping everything and addicted to your phone, because dopamine, we can get addicted to it, and you're actually being able to focus instead of jumping from all the things. So I almost say instead of time think of boundaries. If you just focus on boundaries, you could do a lot with your business. So those are some big things that I want to mention. Some of the key things, and just play with it. Keep it as a practice. Let's see. These are some of my notes. The perfect schedule. So I'm going to say the perfect schedule. Like I said, you're going to adjust it. It doesn't really exist. It's going to be evolving all the time when you hire somebody, if you get new tech, if you're, something comes up. And so what I would say is go for hitting 75% at least 75% of your schedule every day, ideally if you can. And sometimes you'll hit 90, sometimes you'll hit 100. If you're hitting 75 or above every day, think if you came up with your ideal schedule, you played with it, and then like a couple months in, you started it and you stuck to it 75% of the time for an entire year, what that would do for your business. Because we can go for perfect. That is gonna kill you if you go for perfect, because it's never gonna be perfect, and then you're probably gonna beat yourself up, which takes away your dopamine, and it's dysregulated. It makes you bummed out, and you're not gonna do it. So go for 75% or more, and let that be a win. Go for good enough. And then this is another cool thing. So Jay Papasan helped with the book, The One Thing, and he's like a big speaker. His name's Jay Papasan, if you haven't heard of him. And he and I were talking, and I talked to him about, and this was really helpful for him, is you can have like 3 different schedules. So with ADHD, we want like newness, right? We want variation. We also like some sameness, so it's whatever balances for you. But it's okay to have, and I've done this before, schedule A, B, and C. So if we go back to this, it might be that this is your schedule A, this is your schedule B, and you have a schedule C that's somewhere in between, maybe. And you do schedule A, because I get that. I'm like, oh, I want to wake up, work out in the morning, do all this stuff. This feels great. When this gets really hard and it feels like a grind, don't grind. You don't have to. Go to your schedule B and ease up. And maybe you don't do that stuff in the morning anymore if it's not bringing you joy. Maybe you take a break and you sleep in and you get this variation. And then when this feels like kind of a grind or boring, or you don't feel as productive, you're sleeping in too late, go to schedule C and then do that. And this is what Jay Papasan and I talked about, that he said was really helpful for him. Schedule C might be you sleep in until 6:30, but you work out at lunch, like whatever that looks like, right? So, and then you go back to A when you're tired of C. So what that's going to do, you probably heard people say, oh, you got to be consistent, right? You got to hit your time blocking every day, follow it. Our brains are different. If things are too the same, if they're too boring, if it's the same thing over and over again, if it's not new, if it's not challenging, right? Now you're doing your schedule, it's not producing dopamine. And if you have lower levels of dopamine, which a lot of us do, what's going to happen is that's when we start to get dysregulated. It's going to feel boring. It's going to feel hard. So if you keep pushing and you think you need more discipline, you keep forcing yourself, being harsh with yourself, what's going to happen is you're really depleting your dopamine by forcing yourself to do stuff you don't want to do, and you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out. So you might, again, play with it, and some people might have discipline. I know there's some ADHD agents that do that. I'm not built like that. I can't do the same thing every day for a year. I can't do it time blocking. I have to do A, B, and C, or I will quit. I don't want to do it. It's not new enough. It's not challenging, and I don't like my life, and I don't want to do it. So listen to that stuff. A lot of us tend to put a label on it, like we're immature, or we're not trying hard enough, or we're not disciplined, or we hide it from people, we fake it. Don't do that. I mean, your brain is different for a reason. It's a really incredible thing. And so, yeah, honor that, because that's really important. So yeah, have A, B, and C if you need, or if you like just having the same one all the time, do it. That's kind of the name of the game, is do what you need. So then, and so your schedules give you energy. You should like your schedule every day, right? This is 40 plus hours a week. So keep finding ways to hit your goals that make you happy. You might want to start out your day, as I say, eating the frog, right? Where it's like the thing you don't want to do and it kicks you off. Or opposite, you might want to start your day with something you really want to do that gets you going. So maybe you love calling your sphere because it's really fun. So instead of cold calling or, maybe you start calling your friends or people you like to get you going, and then it's easier. Or maybe you really don't like, certain type of lead gen, and you have to do it, or you want to do it. So you start with that, and then it's like, okay, I ate the frog, right? It's done. I'm not going to worry about doing this thing that gives me anxiety for the rest of the day. So play with that depending on what you like. Let's see, we got the task switching. Just to see, you might have a routine in your car or office before you get into the day to get you in the mode to then go into office to work, or after you're done to kind of calm you or to get you out of that. You also, this is another thing when we're talking about time blocking, is putting, because you can get overstimulated or understimulated like multiple times throughout the day. So we can get like super psyched and have a bunch of energy, and then we can just crash, or it's like too much. Some of us get anxiety and we think it's anxiety, but it might be overstimulation. So you might need to turn the lights off and put in like noise canceling headphones, or listen to music, or have a soft blanket. So some people, and myself included, put in time blocks for regulating emotion. So if you're in that moment where you're understimulated, let's say I just did emails and I'm bored, I might turn on loud music, I might do some jumping jacks, I might walk on a walking treadmill, bounce on a yoga ball, I might go get coffee, like something like that, to rev up my system, to create dopamine, to get me going. If I come up to that break and I feel like kind of like I might have a meltdown, or I just feel really like raw emotionally, or I feel overstimulated or overwhelmed, or the lights feel too bright, or the noises, then I'm going to soothe, I'm going to calm it down. Because we can swing between both, I mean, literally in an hour, in 5 minutes. And so regulating is really important. Once you start regulating manually like that, the brain catches on and can do it a little bit more for you. I've witnessed that. I've seen people do that. So sometimes we got to regulate our emotions and not just suck it up and like numb out, and you may not too. You may not need breaks. I have a client that's just got an internal motor that doesn't stop, and she can hit the same, they're doing a million GCI. She can hit the same schedule and she doesn't need breaks, but she takes like a 2-3 week vacation every quarter. So again, it depends on how you work. So another thing that's really helpful is to watch your commitments. So this is another thing that I see with agents with your time blocking. Make sure the activities that you're making a priority with your fuel, with that dopamine, is an income producing activity. When you say yes to something, you say no to something else. If you're like, I'm going to help an office, I'm going to go to this meeting, I'll do this thing for them, I'm going to get a mentor as an agent, I'm going to help them, I'm going to do all these things. Like every time you say yes, you're saying no to something else. So if you're not on track for your goals, if you're not hitting your time blocking, your intentionality, stop saying yes to stuff, because you are saying no to the other stuff. So until you've got the foundation, until you have the base of those core activities, I would hold off on any extracurriculars. Make sure you're on track with what you're supposed to hit, because otherwise you're going to stay in that space of it being hard because you're using your fuel for other stuff. And it sounds that taking on an agent mentor, please hit your goal before you do that, because we like to help a lot. Like that's us with ADHD, So just really, really make sure you, as they say, get your oxygen mask on first before you help somebody else. So, and if you feel like you don't have time to lead generate because you're too busy, either you need to get leverage. If you don't have enough income to get leverage, then that tells me you're taking on too much that's not lead generating activities. So if I have somebody that's doing like 10 deals a year, 12 deals a year, even like 30 deals a year, and they're like, I don't have time to lead generate. Right there, I'll tell you, you're doing some of the wrong stuff. You're focusing on things that don't have the return. And extras, maybe things that don't matter as much. So if you want to hit your goals, especially, I know everybody here does, especially in this market, in what's happening, it's just, it's kind of thrown off the real estate cycle. Lead generation, like that's your thing. If you can only time block that, do it. And don't take on anything else until that's done. And we'll do a call on lead generation, and make sure you like your lead generation, right? Like it doesn't have to look like everybody else's lead generation. It doesn't have to be phone calls. It doesn't have to be Facebook. It doesn't have to be cold calls. It could literally be out in the community. And then let's say you've listened to this and you're like, Tyler, like I don't know if I want to do this rigidity. I don't know if I could do that. So here's another alternative, because we've talked about time blocking is really intentionality and boundaries. So if right now all you can do is choose 1 to 3 things the night before that you're going to win at and you're going to make a priority, that's still time blocking. and you don't let anything interfere. So the night before, think, what's a win tomorrow, or what's a win this week? What's one thing I can win at in my business tomorrow? Maybe that's 1 hour of lead gen, and before that happens, you don't do anything else. And maybe it happens at 8, maybe it happens at 9, maybe it happens at 10, but it happens and you protect it. In a way, it's still kind of lead gen, you know? And we just had a comment, and that is actually where I'm going next. Thank you for saying that, Dan. So what Dan has said, and this is really, really powerful, and I appreciate you bringing that up, is how rigidity and consistency of time blocking can create freedom and autonomy. And that's very true. So time blocking, you might think in some ways, and that's what I thought, is that if I'm blocking something every 30 minutes, it's anxiety producing, I don't have freedom, it feels like it's like I'm being forced to do stuff. And what happens though, who's got any kind of guilt in the back of my mind of not doing something, even today or this week? They didn't do the lead gen they're supposed to, they didn't call me back, they didn't sit down and do email, right? Or on the weekends, or there's something I forgot or whatever. When you time block and you do get a little bit more structure with those 30 minutes until noon, that guilt can go away. It's the most crazy feeling. So at first, when you're time blocking, it feels like, oh, I'm not military, I don't like this much structure, this is a lot. Once you get used to it and then you feel the guilt go away, it's like, oh my gosh, I've seen the other side, this is crazy. So that's why people do that. And I think a lot of agents, you know, it feels rigid, so I give other alternatives. Once you've tasted what a little bit more rigidity, that's why those 3 schedules are really nice, because you can still have the formal structure in every 30 minutes, but you're still getting variation. And I want to see if I can pull this up. So when I was a wee baby agent, I was asked to come on stage to do for the book The One Thing and talk about time blocking, which was kind of wild. I didn't really expect that. So what I did, and I'm gonna look for this because I realized this might be kind of cool, is I made sheets because a lot of us need to be visual. So for me, I didn't have tons of structure growing up. I resisted it a lot with my mom. It felt like way too much. I'd have meltdowns. It was really hard for me. So the concept of time blocking was pretty insane, and I didn't want to do it. And so what happened, and I think I found it right here. Let's see if I can find it. Okay. So, and I'll find this one. So what I did is I printed out sheets, and I'm gonna do a screen share in a second. And it was like the ideal time schedule, but there was a box next to each one, and I could check the box if I did it in that time blocking spot, or write in if I didn't. And so what that did, and I'm going to pull up that time blocking sheet in a little bit. That was the one way to overcome it for me, was to not look at it like a win or fail. It was kind of an experiment. So once you get your time blocking, if there's a way for you to write in next to it whether you did it or not, and just what you did instead, right? Well, I went on Facebook, or I answered this phone call. It's kind of like when if you go to like a dietitian and you want to do like a food journal, they're not going to say, hey, eat this rigid schedule and don't do anything else. Okay, bye. Right? They're going to say, okay, first I want you to do a food journal, a food diary, and just write down every time you eat something. And then once you get a plan in place, I'm a health and wellness major, so I studied nutrition and things a little bit more. So once you get your plan in place, and then let's talk about it. And if you don't eat the thing in your plan, then write down what you ate instead and what you were feeling, because some of our food stuff can come from feelings. Well, I had the mental health background. So what we're doing is we're looking for clarity. So if you start to track that and you start to give yourself like a journal, you start to notice patterns. So it's like, oh, I didn't do this thing, I went on Facebook. Okay, well maybe it's because I got anxiety, or I always do it at 2:00 in the afternoon. I always fall off at 2 in the afternoon. Oh, maybe my dopamines are lower. Maybe I need more caffeine. You know, so we're looking for data. We're looking for curiosity around this versus if I don't do this, I fail, or rigidity around that. That's going to be really, really important for you to just know why you're doing something or why not. So let's see. Okay, so I think I can show you now. Got it. Okay. I guess I'll just show you a stage picture. You'll come back in time with me. This is old school. So it's not, so yeah, I can give you a screen share. Here we go. Okay, so you can see a little bit in the background. This is a little baby Tyler with this suit. That was my first suit, my first tie. That was me and Gary. Look at that. I didn't even have facial hair. I didn't even know it was going to come in. Thank you, facial hair gods. But here is my time blocking schedule. And you could see I had little X's next to it, whether I did it or not, and then I would write down, if I didn't do it, what I did instead. So this was the ideal schedule. I was pretty rigid. You don't have to do this, but I did block in the afternoon. I think that's less sustainable. But I would do an X, and it said Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday over here. So yeah, I'd write down what I did or not, and if I did something instead. And then there was accountability. And then I would post it in my office so people could come in and see, or I'd post it on my door, so it added extra accountability. And so what happened was the first time I did this, I got maybe 10% of my schedule. I did this over like a 3 or 4 month period, and this is why they put me on stage, I think, is I did over a 3 or 4 month period. So I didn't expect 100% right away. I went for 10, 15%, and then the next week I went for 25%, and the next week 30, 35%, and then I'd move stuff around and think what worked and shift if I needed something easier until I got to about 90, 95% every single day, and it worked. So that's why I just want to hit home that if you've tried it and failed in one day, you're practicing, you're figuring out how to do it, you know. Let's see. Oh, there. Look at no facial hair. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. Yeah. So there's me, Gary. So yeah. So just figure out what works for you. But I do think that a practice is a really good way to look at it, and whatever works for you is right. So